and he's going to be talking about bringing cryptocurrency mainstream.
Well, thank you everybody for coming to the talk. Full of an incredible group of mathematicians, developers, writers, analysts, and we are very excited to bring cryptocurrency mainstream. Just a little bit from my background, I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. You may be familiar with one of my companies. It was started in the dot-com era. We started in the mid-90s. Amongst the craziness, just like this ICO cryptocurrency craziness, it was called Real Age. We were a company that collected more personal data than anybody. We created big data before the term big data came out. We collected 300 data points about people's health, wellness, their lifestyle, what they ate, how much sex they had, just about everything. Maybe you're familiar with it. It was all about, people gave us that data because they wanted to know how to make their real age younger. You all know Dr. Oz. He was our spokesperson at the time. That's where he got his media start, and you now all see him on television. But we had 60 million users globally, 40 million in the US. So since then, I've started a publicly traded financial services company called Reality Shares. It has 5 publicly traded ETFs, and actually next week there's going to be a big announcement from that company about a new blockchain product. So keep your eyes out for that. But Algebraix is a company that's been around for 6-7 years. There's already been $40 million invested in it, in R&D. And it was all built, it started with this notion that data, regardless of its structure, can be represented algebraically. It's a big idea. And we've spent 6-7 years and $40 million of R&D proving it out, looking for the right business model to go after. And with the blockchain coming on, and we said this is going to change the world, and this is where we're applying our data algebra. So the application that we're building is something called a personal secure vault, where individuals can store their personal data, take back ownership of their data, and if they so choose, they can share it. If they choose to share it, they'll get paid for it. And that's what we're doing. We're creating a new cryptocurrency, the ALX coin, which will monetize people's personal data and bring back ownership to the rightful owner. So having said that, let me give you a little context. I mean, we're all in this thing. Even though we're talking about cryptocurrency, we're in a new economy. It's called the data economy. Businesses, it doesn't matter what business they're in, they live and die by how they use data. Whether it's in the internet, the cloud, artificial intelligence, and particularly on the blockchain. It's all about data. How well you can use it, analyze it, make use of it, will make the difference between your success or failure. But the question is, who owns it? Who's the rightful owner? Do you own it? Do you make money off of it? No, you don't. We're going to change that. This the blockchain and cryptocurrency is going to change it all, and we hope to be central to it. So, before we talk about mainstream, let's talk about where we are. I've been involved in a lot of industries. Most of them have incredible data about who's participating. Try and find data about cryptocurrency. How many people own it? How many people use it? You won't find good statistics. You'll find analysts with articles, but you won't find good statistics. That alone tells you how early we are in this economy. Think about the internet. You know how many companies are tracking web surfing patterns? How many people are clicking on ads? Market share of advertising? Think about financial services. there are 100 companies producing statistics about who owns what securities, how they're being traded, et cetera, et cetera. In cryptocurrency, that doesn't exist yet. But there are some things we do know. The best thing I can find is that there were 3 million active accounts, even though there are 35 million activated wallets. 3 million active accounts globally out of 7 billion people. 4% of the wallets supposedly own 96% of the Bitcoin. And my guess it's a smaller percentage than that. We've all heard about the whales. And when there's that kind of lack of distribution, you know we're early. How many people have read the book? It's 30 years old, by Jeffrey Moore. He published it in 1989, Crossing the Chasm. Who's read it? Well, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Everybody in our team, it's a requirement. He identifies this thing called the technology adoption lifecycle that is a universal truth. It doesn't matter if it was the printing press, a railroad, automobiles, airplanes, and particularly as it applies to software, microprocessors, high-tech products. It starts in this area in the beginning called the innovators. These are the people that love technology, love to tinker. The more complex, the better. They love new technologies. As it moves along to the early adopters, these people are more intellectuals, more interested in new technologies, not necessarily the tinkerers. But for a company or a product to be successful, they have to cross this thing called the chasm. How do you get from early adopters and the innovators to the majority of people? And that's where the vast majority of companies and products fail. They may attract early adopters, the technologists, the tinkerers, but how to get to the pragmatic majority, falling into this thing called the chasm, is where most companies and products fail. So I highly recommend picking up Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm if you haven't read it. So the point is where is cryptocurrency on this adoption life cycle? Well, I think we're just maybe past the innovators in the early adopter stage. So the point is, how does cryptocurrency as a product in aggregate cross this chasm? What's it gonna take? Well, I know who's gonna do it and who's not gonna do it. Startups are gonna do it. Just like in the dot-com era, it wasn't Intel, Microsoft, Disney, IBM that brought us the big internet era. It were startups. I mean, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Yahoo, these were startups, even though they're behemoth companies. They were startups in the 90s. Big companies just can't do the innovation. They can't compete with themselves. It requires a startup to do it. So let's talk about how do startups do it? What are the factors for success? If there was one factor for success that you had to pick, who thinks it's capital? Raise your hand if you think capital is the number one issue. Nobody? That's surprising. That's usually the first thing. Well, the answer is no. What about management? Do you think that's the number one factor? Raise your hand. Come on, somebody's got to believe this. Management? No, not the number one factor. And by the way, this information is been academically studied and has been borne out. What about technology? Who's got the best technology? Is that what determines a startup success? Raise your hand if you think it's technology. No?
We all know the answer.
Well, okay, so the last one is marketing. Who thinks it's the best marketing company? Well, that's not right either. Okay, there is one factor that is overriding that determines whether a startup will be successful. Any guesses? Timing. It is all about timing, and this has been borne out over and over and over again. You could have the best product with the best management team, with the best funding. If your product isn't at the right time and the market isn't right for what you're offering, good luck. You're gonna beat your head against the wall. So, guess what? All of us that are running startups in this industry, the timing is amazing. Let's talk about the trends. What are the big trends the way I view it? Well, we all know about decentralization. I mean, the best factor, the most ridiculous thing about centralization versus decentralization, I could talk about the Federal Reserve all day long.